Awesome, man. So we're not doing the intro anymore, so we could just get into it. You want to give us an intro on the things you want to talk about, and then I'll talk about so for me, I guess I just want to talk about some products, some things that came on my radar this week, and then Eric's got some other things he wanted to chat about next or this week, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, I'm talking about Code Interpreter and then using AI to do things you can't do for work, pretty
Yeah,
much.
exactly. Some of the products I was looking at do that, but you want to start with Code Interpreter?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So Code Interpreter rolled out to everybody who
So
has
what is
ChatGPT
it?
Plus.
Yeah, like what? Yeah, what is it? Tell us what that is,
Yeah,
because it sounds
it,
technical.
it's almost like a plugin in ChatGPT where you can add a file. You can either add a file or you can ask ChatGPT to do something related to code, and it can locally run code in ChatGPT. So you can run Python code in the chat. What I've been using it for is data analysis for the most part. You can drop a CSV file in there, ask it questions, and it's really cool to see how they built it. The model will work through problems, and if it runs into issues, it'll rerun the code, and it basically problem solves its own Python code
Hmm.
live in the browser in front of your face, which is crazy.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's amazing.
yeah, it's unlike anything I've ever used, and uh, you can also visualize stuff. I've seen a lot of cool people being asking it to build, ASCI art or whatever, however you pronounce that, or like asking it to describe files that it puts in there. You can also do like pretty complex math if you ask it to. It's not really my jam, but
Yeah.
for the people who like math, but it's really a kind of a change and the like adding on a really awesome feature to ChatGPT where you can you can have an AI model write code for you and execute it in a chat window, which is crazy.
So tell me more about what gets excited. I'm sorry, what gets you excited about this? Like I have a couple ideas for. So I guess that maybe I'll ask a question instead of like sort of giving you nothing. So I have a lot of spreadsheets through work that are sent to me from disparate places. So very large organizations that are logistical companies that send us spreadsheets of inventories. They're sort of hard to parse through just because there's so many cells in the spreadsheet. So the idea here is that I can use the code interpreter to provide it with that information somehow, and then query it in natural language and say, are there certain distribution centers that have higher demand consistently, like, and those sorts of
Yeah,
questions, and just allowed me to ask actual natural language questions
yeah.
of
Like drop
information in the
that
spreadsheet.
file in there and say, this is what it is. And in this column, our distribution centers are like you could basically say, here's my file. This is what it is. I want to know which distribution centers need X or have X. And
Hmm.
it will write all the code and query it in there and then give you the response, which is wild.
It is pretty wild.
Yeah.
What gets you excited about it? I know that you pumped in some data from either Promptist or one of the ChatGPT plugins you have in there and sent it to me, and it was incredible to see the line of reasoning it used on it completely independently. So you provided one prompt, and then it had all of these actions it was taking to debug itself in real time.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing to see that. But what
Crazy.
gets you excited about it?
Yeah. For me, I mean, since I have all of these products right now, I can basically pull data every week and figure out a flow of this is the type of data analytics I need. And I have basically a free data analyst to tell me
Yeah,
to give me insights. So normally this would take a long time of building kind of flows of information. Now I can literally download just bulk data, have like a set of a few prompts I want to ask it about it, and it can also give me guidance on what I should ask as far as analyzing,
that's
yeah, user data,
that's the thing.
usage data. Also for like budgeting stuff, being like, here's the amount of paid customers I have, give me insights into growth rate, stuff like that is so cool.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it makes it so much faster and more accessible to like do things that you would normally either have to pay a contractor for or hire somebody who makes like six figures.
Yeah, exactly. As like a data analyst, right? That's the role that we're talking about.
Yeah, or a data scientist.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. Um, I guess for me, some of the things are like knowing what to ask it. And this is like, I've been in this situation with you in the past where you're saying, well, if you don't know what to ask it what you should ask it.
Yeah.
Is an important thing to keep in mind. It's pretty cool how you can query it and it doesn't have any ego and it's certainly not judging you and it's going to provide you with what it is that it thinks might be the most useful information to pull from it. Pretty cool.
Yeah. I think you can learn a lot from just being like, I have this data, I don't really know what I need to know. And then being like, take a look at all this data and
Yeah,
give me insights that you think are important based on it. And it actually will make those decisions, and it will make pretty good decisions and give you really good insights. So that kind of leans in a little bit to another topic I want to touch on, which is like using AI to do jobs you can't do.
yeah, exactly.
I've thought about this a lot with the business stuff. It's like building for myself an app that I could use every day to about and basically insert my business goals and get feedback on what I should be working on right now. Almost
Mm,
like building your own mentor or building a CEO that gives you, it's like, well, you should focus on this. Like, if your goals are to do this and this is what your company does, do this. Like, there's a lot of room to build people who do that. Same with marketing. Be like, these are the channels I operate on. This is what my company does. This is what my goals are. Tell me what kind of marketing content I should make and guide me through the process of making it or deciding. Um, like, there's some really, and same with customer service. These are the
hmm
type you can basically build, you could use ChatGPT for it too, but you could also build solutions where uh, you you abstract all the information, you have it, you add it in either as a prompt or as like a database it can pull from, and then you go to it when you have questions. Like,
exactly.
how would I respond to this as a customer service agent for this product? And then here's all the solutions I know of. And it can just spit it out like that.
Yeah, yeah. That one, a lot of people are working on that.
Yeah,
And it's something that even, we're talking with somebody about building one for them. And ultimately what it is having data. And we had initially in the consultation is like, I was trying to think about it this way. I need to know as much information and as much data as they have in these different silos and have it in one place. And then I slept on it and I was like, that's completely incorrect. I don't need all of that information at all. That's making way more of a problem than it actually is. What we really need are 50 FAQs in a single 2 column database. And
yeah,
then we use that as the back end, or we use that as the prompts on the back end. Ultimately, you don't even need to feed it into a database and make it even more complicated. You can use those as the prompts as the prompt engineer and
yeah.
ultimately make it such that it's pulling from those. So pretty cool. So our next step there is to get those 50 FAQ filled out, which just takes time for that team. So it's not done just yet. But once we get that up and running, it'll be pretty exciting for us to have done that for our team.
Yeah, it's wild.
Um,
You could
yeah,
even, one cool thing about prompts, talking about just doing prompt engineering background, is if the questions and answers aren't that long, you could literally just have a chat bot, but in the back, it's like every prompt that goes in says, here's a question from the user, here's 50 FAQs to answer from. If you don't know
exactly,
the answer, say, email this person. And
exactly.
then in the prompt, it has all the FAQs and it can literally pull from them, which is wild.
And I think that the innovation there is that it's the simplest solution is the solution that works really is that works best in that situation. Which in the beginning of this whole sort of I hesitate to call it a revolution, but in the beginning of this product, these large language models coming out in like whole sort of wholesale and us using ChatGPT and becoming obsessed with this, I didn't realize that you could actually do that because I didn't realize the content of a prompt is only limited really by your creativity.
Yeah.
Which is really really cool. What other instances of using AI to do jobs? Like I know that a lot of people are using it. I know that there's a product I had listened to a podcast. They were talking about a product that uses. Um, there's a bot that connects all your disparate information. So it's a bot that's pretty much an assistant that can then book time in your calendar or send an email on your behalf or do this or that. That's sort of like an executive assistant that connects everything. But ultimately, there's disparate feedback on whether or not it's actually that useful.
Yeah.
Um, so I haven't looked into that one. There are a few different things that are like somewhat obvious to me, but I'm interested to know if there are other things you were thinking about.
Yeah, I think the things that do things on your behalf automatically don't seem like they're there yet.
Yeah,
It's it's not a thing that you can really trust yet, or that's mature enough. Like you kind of still have to do some manual work.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, for me, the big things are basically data, data strategy, marketing, and then customer service would be another one too. Like outside of that, I don't know if I have a lot of other things that I'm really focused, but the sky's the limit, I'm kind
Hmm.
of always pigeonholed by what I work on. So I only think
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that. And I don't really know what other people do for their jobs anymore.
Yeah, of course. I think that there's a massive use case in the legal realm, just because my dad's an attorney, my sister's in law school. I used to work at law firms. So I think about that a lot. I was talking to my sister about that at dinner last night. It was really cool. I actually came across this past week a free, so this is called Your Free Guide to Mastering Legal Prompt Engineering with ChatGPT.
Nice.
Fascinating to see this, like people building out documentation around how to use ChatGPT, and prompt engineering to elicit the best responses. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I really liked reading through that. So yeah, I'm definitely keeping up with that team. Another example I'd seen of like automating tasks is like autofill for everything. There's this tool that I'd found called Stackmatic.ai, and what they do is they allow for you to upload really any document, PDF, and even a PDF that like isn't interactive. It doesn't allow for you to select texts, but what this actually does is you upload the information and it scrapes it exhaustively. And so even if you couldn't highlight numbers in the PDF that you're uploading, it is able to pull that information, and then in the fields that you're filling out, it's a Google Chrome extension, and what it does is it autofills in the same way that if you have an address saved in your browser, it'll autofill the address. This autofills from the document you uploaded, and so it just allows for everything to be much, much, much faster,
Yeah.
and saves you a bunch of time. That's their whole value proposition: is we can save you 20 hours a week. Pretty
Nice.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the value propositions of saving people time. That's what
Yeah.
everybody wants, really.
Yeah. At a certain point, it's like, yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I don't really have anything insightful to say beyond that. The other thing, the one thing I'll say in defense of like having something that generates content for you, although when I say that out loud, it makes me think of Perfect Chirp, but nonetheless, I use Superhuman, which is an email client, and like is an it's a email middleware, I should say, and so I plug in all of my emails to that, to Superhuman, and Superhuman's exorbitantly expensive, but I've used it at startups in the past with teams, and what it allows for you to do is pretty much use it as command line. So it allows for you to just use keyboard strokes through email. So for me, that's much faster than typing. I'm sorry, than using my mouse and clicking things, using the trackpad and clicking things. And ultimately, it allows me to manage 7 or 8 email addresses, because I'm working with different clients. I have different email addresses for different clients. And so I'm really liking it. And this week, or maybe, I know that they just launched it on product hunt 2 days ago, but it's called Superhuman AI. And
Nice.
what it does is it scrapes the emails that you've sent, and then it allows for you it generates responses or replies to future emails, based on your tone and your cadence and the way that you type, and not necessarily literally the way that you type, but the content of your emails, to then make it like you, right? So it gives you a head start on writing emails, which I think is incredibly valuable. I was talking to my sister again last night about this, not about this particularly, but she was saying how there are these copyright cost cases where artists are coming to and suing Chat or OpenAI or Google for Bard, whatever it might be, because they're saying that their IP, which from a legal perspective, it's not their IP. They didn't copyright it
Yeah.
necessarily, but they're saying this is exactly like my tone. This is exactly my content. This is completely illegal. This is plagiarism. And for me, it's like I don't necessarily agree that that is just so easily. To me, it's very opaque. It's not
Yeah.
nearly as black and white as that sounds. And so I was kind of pushing back. As an older brother, it's very easy to come off as combative, I think, because of a history of being an asshole as a kid. But I'm not trying to be that way at all, because I think in reality, that's what artists do, is they use the tools that they have in front of them to create new ideas that weren't available before. So like, I'm sure that Beethoven had people who then played a lot of his music. He thought that was bogus, and he's getting ripped off, So
Yeah.
I just don't really know that it's for me, it's much less about, oh, this is creating content to me. It's like a scarcity mindset versus a growth mindset, right? So we've talked about this countless times. Like a scarcity mindset is like, this is stealing my job. This is stealing my tone. This is unfair. For me, it's like, this can write in my tone. Like, wow, that could save me 15 minutes an email. That could save me 5 minutes an email. Even if 5 minutes an email, I'm sending 50 emails a day. It's a lot of time. It's a whole hour back, like it's a lot of time I could save. So I really like the idea. It's not perfect. I'm certainly not like typing,
4
write me a reply and then hitting send. What'd you say? I missed
I think that's almost 4 hours back. I don't know. I'd have to ask Code Interpreter.
it. 5 minutes for 50 emails. I thought that was.
10
Oh, you're
times.
right. Yeah, it's almost 4 hours. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I thought it was 1 hour. Yeah, I thought it was 50 minutes. Yeah, no, you're right. It's not one minute in email. It's 4 hours back. So
Yeah.
yeah, even still, even more convincing. But I think that, and it's all. What I was going to say is, it's not like you're just. It's not like I'm relying this entire like I've just outsourced my job entirely to this AI tool that's doing it for me. It's not even close to that, and I don't know that that will ever be the case because I work in a very much like a consultative industry, and like my high touch and my personal touch is what makes me different, and it makes us different. It makes us successful. So it will never be a world in which you hand off everything, but there's no reason not to use tools to differentiate yourself and save time. And if this is doing it in a way that is saving me time just by like filling in stock things, that's amazing. It's like so helpful. I think it's really, really powerful.
Yeah. And also to the point of like that my style is of writing is something I can copyright. I don't think you could do that. Like,
Yeah,
I've been a professional copywriter for years now, and
that's a good point.
everybody, literally the structure, almost everything's been said in one way or the other. Like everything that you write is just a variation of something that's already been written. So you can
Yeah,
go draw inspiration from like I used to do this a lot with Nike because I just always was a Nike fan growing up. So and I
same.
think the marketing was good. So I'd go and take stuff that they'd written because they pay people probably millions of dollars, their entire marketing team. They go through all these levels of copywriting and they get it down to like the pure essence of what they're trying to say. And then I would just take that structure and I would replace the words for whatever I was selling, like originally when I started doing D2C e-commerce stuff. Instead of like really elite shoes, I was doing goofy shorts and I was
Yeah,
changing the things that sounded intense to words that were funnier. And that worked really well. And you don't have to do it forever. Eventually, you start figuring out the structure of how things work and doing it for yourself. But I was just doing what an AI would do,
yeah, exactly.
just taking a lot more time.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and I don't think you can be that precious with structure and tone. I think you just have to get better at, you have to adapt a little bit. And
Yeah,
we
it's
see it
tough.
in the music industry is rife with it now where people are trying to sue new artists. Older artists are suing newer artists for
Yeah,
taking melodies or songs that sound similar. And I think a lot of people are winning cases where it's like all music has kind of been made in one way or the other. And you can't really claim that you own keys in a certain, like the
yeah,
way
right.
that a song is played because music's been going on for forever.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was a point I had made last night. It's like people will always be litigious. Like the estate of Marvin Gaye had sued Robin Thicke for that like super popular, extremely trendy song that like even I know, like I'm not a Robin Thicke. I can't name a single album or song. I don't even know the name of the song, but I know that that lawsuit had happened because it was that song with Pharrell that he had done. It was so popular, so catchy.
Yeah.
It's like makes you want to dance, and like then there was a huge lawsuit about that, and ultimately, I could not agree more with you. I think yeah, I had a beer and I didn't have more than one, but I was just thinking like I got a little bit sort of like nasty in my head. I was thinking to myself like, man, this is like to be able to just like sue because you think that your voice is so unique is such a cop out, lazy approach to me. It's like because like, oh, I'm so good. How could you possibly copy me? It's like, dude, what are you talking about? Get out of
Yeah.
here. Like, I don't know. That to me is like it's surprising to me that that sort of story is being covered in like in the New York Times. That was kind of like my response. Like this is silly. Like why are we even focused on this? But
Yeah. I
I
mean,
don't know.
humans
Maybe I'm
are,
a pessimist.
yeah, I heard something this past week that was like, history doesn't repeat itself, human nature does. So there's going to be, I mean, good, great time to get into lawsuits about that kind of stuff because
Yeah,
people will pay you for it for sure. But
exactly. Yeah.
you know,
there's always an attorney team that will take your case, and I'm sure, of course, you pay them
yeah,
by the hour. And then even if they work on a retainer, if they're suing some massive moneymaker like OpenAI.
yeah,
And then imitation's the highest form of flattery, right? Like that's a saying that I've heard before. I certainly
yeah.
didn't make that up, so it's not a new idea.
Yeah. Also, I don't know. Coming up with something is just means that you've learned enough from all these different sources
Yeah,
that you've done something that gets you recognition. It doesn't mean that you are. I think people can tend to feel like this is my thing, and if anything is similar to it, uh, it's a strike against me. When really it's not. And I think it's people not paying attention to how they got to where they are.
yeah.
Like we're not all so creative that we're coming up with magic.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's, I don't know much about Stephen King, but I get the impression the guy is a prolific writer, like like he just is pumping out books all the time. They're all very unique. People love him. And he
Yeah.
has, I don't know how many books. I would venture to say over 50, maybe over 100. I don't really know. Maybe way more than that. I'm not sure. But somebody like that, who is a real artist, is not sitting around being like, oh, this guy stole my idea. He's like just writing. He's like, that's what he does is he writes.
Yeah.
Um, there was a skit on Chappelle Show back in the turn of the century where he had it was called Ask a Black Guy with Paul Mooney, and they were just asking people on the streets of New York City about questions they had for black people. And it was so funny, and Paul Mooney he was hilarious and really sort of gruff and but had a really funny sarcastic tone. And they had found Stephen King on the street near Times Square, I think it was, and they had asked him a question. It's very funny. I forget. I wish I remembered what the question was, but every time I think of Stephen King, I think of him being on Chappelle Show with like this little 20-second clip where he asks a question to Paul Mooney about black guys. It's so
Oh, that's hilarious, man.
funny. Classic. That is a weird aside. um, nice, man. Well, that's pretty much all we had. Was there anything else you wanted to go over? I know we haven't done. Yeah. Was there anything else you
Yeah.
want to go through?
The only other thing is OpenAI is it's kind of on the same thing. The FTC, Federal Trade Commission, I think that's what they are,
Yeah, I
or
think you're right.
opened a case up against OpenAI. It's like very early stages, but more or less, I forget exactly all the parts of it, but it's something that we'll keep tabs on. It's one of those stories where everybody freaks out at the beginning, but really it's not a big deal yet.
Yeah. Do you have any? I don't even know about it. What was the impetus for it? Do you have any idea?
No, and I know it got leaked. It was leaked before it was official, so
Mm,
uh, they were trying. I don't know. People would like really like to hype stuff up. Like we just saw this XRP thing go through after 2 years, where uh, it was not. They came to the conclusion it was insecurity, but for like 2 years, everybody was freaking out about it. I'm pretty sure it's about protecting consumer data. I
okay.
don't know. I shouldn't have brought it up. I didn't have enough information.
No, I'll make a note. We'll talk about it next week. I didn't know about that.
Okay.
Um, um, awesome.
Sweet.
Sweet man.
Well, it is peak summer, so the perfect time for you to bring out a hot take.
What was it? That was a good one. Would you say that was awesome?
No, I said I've lost my touch. That was,
Oh,
I'd say, in the lower 30% of the
there have
hot
been some
take.
really good ones. Um, yeah, well, we all have to keep in mind Eric's about to move, and so he's like in the midst of. I'm sure there's a lot of boxes around. I can't see them, but yeah, I know that there's a lot going on. So we appreciate you taking the time. But nonetheless, for me, my hot take is that you got to treat yourself sometimes, and it's easy to get wrapped up in this or that. And I remember when I had started a job. Um, like a little bit into COVID, I was pretty excited. I got like a pretty big title change, and I'd been working toward, kind of in the rat race isn't the right way to say it, but like sort of working my way up with like superficial ladder at like startups, like moving laterally with different, like all within the sales organizations can be a little bit of a race. But I was really proud of myself. I had gotten a little bit of a pay bump, and so I bought myself a surfboard I'd wanted for 8 years, like the time that I met Eric. Like, actually, it's this orange board back here. Um, but I remember buying myself that board because it was it was the ideal board that I wanted based on practicing in college, and just being obsessed with it, and like had thought about it in landlocked Zambia in the Peace Corps many nights, and like had drawn it and knew what I wanted, and ended up getting. I didn't expect it to be orange, but that was the one they had at the time. They sent it to me, and it just means a lot and has meant a lot. And I put a few $100 into repairs on it. I brought it with me around the world surfing, and it's sort of, I don't know, it means a lot to me. And then recently, just yesterday, I recently got another new job, and this one's even more exciting in a lot of different ways. And I treated myself by getting myself a different sort of surfboard that's not actually a surfboard. It's a paddle board, but it's a prone paddle board, so you lay on it and you paddle. But I've been thinking about this for years, and I was really hesitant to do it. It's a large price tag, and but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like, this. If you continue to work hard and these things are what you look forward to, and you think about these sorts of things for years, it's important to sort of, I think, treat yourself to those things. So I'm really, this is my way of sort of validating that it's okay that I spent money on a surfboard.
It's awesome, man. I love new toys. I did the same thing with a bike like a month and a half ago, and
Yeah, I remember.
I ride that shit every day.
Yeah, exactly. I've already been I paddled yesterday. I was so stoked. I spent like an hour on it. I'm gonna go paddle today. It's so fun. I love it.
Yeah, congrats, dude.
Thanks, man. What do you got?
I'll do another work-related one. There's something that I heard somewhere that was focus on what's 6 inches in front of your face, but it's more or less like just don't get sidelined by all the things that you can't control. Just focus on what you can control, and I like that.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, there's so many things going on in AI, and with starting a startup sort of deal that it's hard to focus on things that you can just change, but thinking about that regularly has been super helpful. It allowed me not to get all over the place.
How do you keep that top of mind? I think that that's almost like, it's like borderline Zen Buddhism you're talking about, the ability to like block out the noise and just be focused on the now. Like that's really difficult. How are you? Do you have like, are you like somehow hacking yourself somehow with like reminders and things like that to like stay focused, or how are you doing that?
Yeah, I put a cord in through my ear and I pull it. No, I just think about it a lot. Like the only focus on the things that I can work on. Especially when it comes to the products. It's like, okay, what can I what do I need to work on, and what can I do on it today?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you manage your tasks, if you don't mind me asking? I don't even know.
I usually just write down 3 that I need to do for the day. Although one of them's evergreen, so I do that every day. But really, I try to keep it to like 3 big things a day.
And you just literally write them down in the morning?
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. Yeah, I recently got this. I've got a bunch of notebooks I use. This one's a journal here. It's a little bigger. Yeah. But this is like my tasks notes, and it's just like constantly being crossed out of stupid things that I'm not getting done. But I tend to keep all my tasks in Notion, but then I keep like top of mind things in this notebook, because I don't think I'll ever be in a place where I don't like to write things down. It's just fun to write.
Fun to write. I fucking love writing.
Yeah. For sure. Awesome, man. All right, cool. Another week down. It's fun doing this. I've been zooming in on your face in the window, so I'm just looking straight at you. It's really helpful. And I look over and like, oh wow, I gotta fix my shirt. Oh gosh. Awesome, man. Yeah. So next week it'll be the last week when we have half of the team in Austin. But yeah, we're so we'll chat early next week, and then we'll then be based in Idaho.
There we go.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, mountain podcast.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. All right, cool. Well, shout out to Josiah Soren for that incredible intro tunage. And yeah, we'll see you here next week, episode 24.
All right, see you then.
All right, ciao, bro.